Hey there, friends. It's Codiak here from Legacy Gaming, and as you can see, we've gathered a handful of talented content creators, and we're going to talk about some Outriders. But I think it's only fair that we start with the basics, so let's go around and quickly introduce everyone for the people watching at home. And let's start with your name, your channel name, and the games you play and cover on your channel, starting with Ginger Prime.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ginger Prime, otherwise known as Brian. I cover action RPGs that have a multiplayer component. So you will see, obviously, Outriders. You saw a little bit of Anthem, RIP Anthem back in the day. A lot of Phantasy Star Online, too. I love Final Fantasy 14. Anything that has that social component. As a gamer, that's kind of my outlet, especially over this last year. It's become even more important. And then I also am connected to a kind of in a way that what you have going on with Legacy Gaming with Work to Game. So me and my friend Chris, we actually run that channel together where we talk pretty much a lot of things about Final Fantasy 14, but just generally MMORPGs. So that's who I am, and that's where you can find me. I don't know how to transition for that.
That's great. Great. Next up, go ahead.
My name's Abby. Hello. You can find me at youtube.com/AbbyHour. I cover mostly looter shooter type games. So I've got some Outriders content on there, Destiny 2, Borderlands, Remnant from the Ashes, stuff like that. I mostly create guides and walkthroughs focusing on new players. So.
Nice. Next up.
Cool. All right. I'm Vulkan. Nice to meet you guys. And my channel is really all about loot. Whether that's Diablo, Outriders, Path of Exile, Remnant from the Ashes. If it has loot, I'm playing it. And yeah, so it's about it.
Nice. And last but not least.
How's it going, guys? Yep. I'm Livid, Cody's partner on the channel with Legacy Gaming. My strengths with games are generally in the looter shooter genre as well. I've played all of Destiny all the way through early beta access on the first game. I play anything that has loot. I love grinding mindlessly for hours on things that end up having no point later on. But it's great. So yeah, those are my strengths with games. We like other games too, like other adventure things, RPGs. But loot is my main focus for games. So.
And you guys know me. I'm Codiak. I play pretty much anything under the sun. I don't really have a genre at this point. I'll play Stardew Valley, and I'll also play Mortal Kombat, so it really doesn't matter for me. But today we're here to talk about Outriders, and we've got a slew of questions for you guys. So we're going to just kick it off way back when you first heard about Outriders, saw it, read about it. What was your initial reaction? And we're going to start with Vulkan.
So when I first saw Outriders, I guess a little bit of history of me. Big Destiny 2 fan, big Destiny fan. And that really kind of kicked off a love for looter shooters in an online setting. I really enjoyed Borderlands. So I was really looking for the next kind of big thing, right? Destiny 2 at that point had gotten a little stale for me personally. So when I saw Outriders, it was a big kind of, oh man, I need to tell everybody about this. I remember I ran into my supervisor's office, who was also a big looter shooter guy. We played Division together, and was like, "Hey, check this out! Like, pull this up. It's this new Outriders thing. Definitely hype. Let's get on this." And I had tons of questions, but at the same time, there was a lot of kind of cautious optimism because we had just kind of transitioned off of Anthem. So I was like, dude, I know I did this when Anthem came out, but gear up because I think this is going to be good. It's from People Can Fly, and I was really kind of hyped because the developer had a lot of backing, and they had a reputation that I was pretty well connected to.
Nice. Abby, Brian, what about you guys?
I mean, when I first saw Outriders, I was super excited. I had been playing Division and Destiny and all those games, and Remnant from the Ashes as well, which I feel like Outriders has a lot of similarities to Remnant, but more so loot based, which I really like. So I was really excited to check it out and to get on board with it.
So for me, it was the first impressions was not good. They announced it at E3, and there was a trailer, and it's like, what is this? Like, because it was so just traditional. Like, there's this game out there, and it wasn't until they started actually doing a kind of a semi-press tour. They started inviting various creators to go out, and they started showing off and letting creators play the game. It was a couple of weeks actually before that. I knew that event was going on. I wasn't a part of that event because I have a relationship with Square Enix through Final Fantasy, but I knew this was happening, and so I was like, okay, but what is going on? This seems way more interesting, because that's when I really learned about like People Can Fly. I have a massive love for Gears. It does not play well out on any of my channels, so it is something kind of this personal. Everybody kind of needs the game that they just play, and especially in a content creation perspective, it's like, I don't need to make content around this. This is something that I find so enjoyable, and I've longed to see like what would Gears look like if they took it in the direction, like that one next step, in that regards. And maybe we'll get there, who knows. But I also have this real complicated relationship with Destiny. So coming off of Anthem, it was like, well, what is this? And then People Can Fly is just such an incredible developer. Like they really, and what people think of Fortnite, it's so unfortunate they don't think of People Can Fly, because People Can Fly actually worked on that. They were the ones who are even credited for getting it kind of over that finish line.
Yeah,
so,
I played a ton of Fortnite Save the World, the PvE version of Fortnite. And when I found out that they were a part of that, I was like, oh, this is great. Like this feeds into what I enjoy. So
you're 100% right. And and they're often kind of just more, they've always been kind of more in the background. It's like, and they know this, genre. And so then as it goes on, and then we start even learning more. So I started following kind of from the channel perspective, like, okay, like what is this game? It's starting to seem like that there's definitely something there. And obviously COVID hit, and then everything kind of got delayed. Yeah. But their information from as soon as I was like, okay, I need to start paying attention to this, has been spot on. And then finally going hands on with it. They had an Xbox kind of little preview thing, which I don't know what we were allowed to share and whatnot. So it was just like, you guys should probably start paying attention to this game. I don't think it's going to be, I don't know if it'll be for everybody, because everybody's got a lot of different tastes, but they're coming out with the demo, shows such confidence that they have that core aspect. So when you look at Outriders and Destiny, even though they're two different models in terms of one's a game as a service, Outriders is not, they're like, you go to Destiny and you get immediately hooked on that gameplay. It doesn't matter like if they do a bad update, it doesn't matter with a bad expansion. If you come back to the game after a period of time, you're like, oh my gosh, this feels so good. And I get that feeling right there with Outriders.
Yeah, it's interesting. You brought up the demo, and I didn't actually write this down as a question, but there's not a lot of AAA companies that release full-blown demos that give people unfettered access to at least a portion of the game. And that was such a big component of the entire Outriders rollout. Obviously, there's stuff going on. They're rehyping it with new trailers and some, paid opportunities, whatever. But like the demo was really what's either sold people or maybe they said, oh, okay, it's not for me. But I think that's brilliant. And it should be a flag, at least in my opinion, that all these AAA developers that are too afraid to release their products for whatever reason, Cyberpunk, anything like that, like look at what they're doing with this game, and it's going to succeed because so many people got the opportunity to really formulate their opinion. Brian, what do you got?
So, and just a kind of caveat of that, and not charging that demo behind a pre-order bonus. Like it's typically you would see like you got a pre-order, and I did not know this, but somebody, my podcast host Chaos, let me know that even Ubisoft, if you actually play the beta or their demo of games, that immediately cancels your ability to cancel your pre-order as a part of their policy. And I was like, I didn't even know that. Wow. And so not all publishers do that, but it's like, yeah, like play that. Like I've always said, yeah, if they do a pre-order kind of early access thing, you play it and cancel it if you don't like it. The risk is low, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, I wasn't even aware of that. But that's just one of the things that I was impressed by with People Can Fly here.
Yeah, I think it's insane that they're even patching demos too. And all of the just post-launch support for the demo that's come out, just insane.
The communication on top of the patches too.
Yes,
you patch a demo, that's one thing, but then you write up these full-blown Reddit articles, which is honestly, we're all content creators. We know that's enough because we will regurgitate it in the ways that we do. Like that's all they needed to do. And yet so many developers miss that mark. They're either, they write a half-ass blog post that doesn't tell anybody anything, or they just don't even do it. But again, you're right, Vulkan. We're talking about a demo here. It's crazy. It's just practice. You know what I'm saying?
They're even giving us previews into what the day one patch is going to look like, and to even what a few weeks down the line patch is going to look like, to kind of make sure everybody knows, hey, we hear you. We're working on these issues, and this is the timeline for them, which is crazy to see at this point.
It's kind of like they saw like how everybody else failed, and they're like, okay, let's make some notes. And let's play the opposite playbook here. And honestly, like even the fact that like not even thinking of myself as a content creator, as somebody who's like just a fan of games, like thank you. Like this is information that's really good for me to know. And because at the end of the day, like what can I blame? Like you either like the game or you don't. You can try it for free and then you can walk away, or you can say, maybe I want to experience a little bit more of this.
Yeah.
I think Outriders as well. Go ahead.
I always wonder myself, like, what for them goes into them actually patching the demo. Because in a lot of times when it comes to demos, they're not like the fully most updated versions of the game. They're usually like older builds, right?
It's a lot of work.
So for them to be patching the demo, I don't know, first of all, if they're running them off like a live build of the game, like if it is a most recent update. But if it's not, that shows even more credence to them of their, dedication to making sure that the experience is good for people, and they're showing they're putting their best foot forward, by putting that effort into a product that at that time is taking a little bit of resources, away from the rest of the game, which is good. It helps, put that vote of consumer confidence in things, and you can't say that about many developers at all these days.
Anybody here with familiar with software development and the agile work methodology? All right. To summarize it very dumbly, just for anybody, you have things called branches, so things get checked in. So it could also be a fact that they have a different branch as they're going into their live release and able to kind of say, okay, let's take that's been fixed. So you can start piecing things together, but it is a lot of work because you can also mess things up in the long run. So there's a lot of work that does go into that aspect, and you have multiple teams obviously working on different aspects, art, code, networking, but it's like those things all get checked in, and then you have somebody who's in charge of saying, all right, let's stack the deck. That's how this works out. Software engineers who's listening to that and be like, that's not how it is. It's like, but yeah, trying to like simplify it in a way through my personal experience and doing that kind of stuff.
I do think it's important just to tell people. I saw a tweet, and Livid knows that I am not a Twitter person at all, but I saw a tweet that I'm not. I'm really terrible at it. But they have 300 people on their team now. So I would classify that, with their relationship with Square Enix stuff, it's a AAA developer. And for us to think of it as an indie studio is just wrong, I think, at this point. So I think there's standards, and they're just showing that AAA developers can have these high standards for their games and how they roll out a game. Obviously, they have a relationship with Square Enix and this marketing group called Fourth Floor, and they're all working in harmony, which is very important because let the developers focus on the game, let the marketers focus on the marketing. Don't make developers do the marketing. It just doesn't work that way. But if they're in sync and they're rolling out the information that players care about, well, that's a big deal. But let's move on because I've got a great question, and I'm going to start this one with Abby. How many hours did you sink into the Outriders demo, and what were some of your thoughts about the demo as a whole? I know we just kind of talked about the demo, but how many hours and what were your thoughts,
Well, I played on both PC and my Xbox Series X just because I wanted to see the performance on both and matchmaking on both. I also tried out crossplay because I have a lot of friends on Xbox, but I wanted to play the game on PC just for, ease of recording and all that good stuff. I think I have like 80 or 90 hours on PC put in, but some of that's, AFK idle time. So I've got 6 legendaries, I think. I'm not,
You're around me. Yeah, that's where I'm at too.
Yeah. I haven't been very lucky. I did lose a Golem's Limb and now it's back. So I'm very thankful for that.
That's such a good
that
shot.
was awesome.
That's a great gun.
Who knows what's in my stash that I didn't know I had? It'll be like Christmas morning, checking out our stash when the day comes out. But I enjoyed the demo a lot. I thought it gave kind of a good look at the game. The prologue, it's a little slow, but that's to be expected. I feel like every game is like that. They're showing you what buttons you're supposed to press and how you sprint and how you shoot and all this. But I really enjoyed the demo. I was fortunate enough to play the Xbox Insider test as well. So I played a lot more of the game during that test. And it was very obvious that there had been a lot of improvements to the game in terms of connection and lag and, all that kind of stuff. So it was nice to see, the progress since last December.
Nice. Vulkan, Brian, one of you guys want to chime in?
Yeah. So I have about 70 hours into the demo.
How's that possible for a new dad? How's that possible?
I know. You know what? It's just a lot of sleep sacrifice. I don't sleep much around here, so a lot of monster energy in that.
Hold the baby in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Controller player for the win. It's like,
strap them.
Right, exactly. I know. I was telling my wife that I was like, I need to get like one of those like front things, like just put them in there, like game,
Yeah.
Tap around like the space bar and stuff. But yeah, so from a demo perspective, I think it gave enough of a taste to most people, right? We talked about how it was, a decent chunk of here's how the game's going to play. I do think there was a few shortcomings in terms of like skill trees and the amount of skill points we get. But I do think it's cool they put those legendaries and those chase items in there. They could have, either held those out and just kind of advertise them, here's the carrot on the stick type of deal. But incorporating those, I think, was really good. To Abby's point, playing the insider test, it was nice to see a lot of that progress and a lot of those improvements that came out of that test into the demo to make things a little bit better for most people. But all in all, I think it was really a good offering and something that I think, kind of playing into our previous conversation, being able to take that progression and move it forward into the main game to give more incentive for people to play is just a slam dunk. So it reminds me of the old days where you get demo discs with like pizzas and cereals and stuff, and you just play the hell out of those things.
It's like the modern version of it. It's brilliant. Exactly. It really is.
So before I answer with my time, I'm going to preface this with I have 5 children. So
3 hours for Brian.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
I did probably, I think around, I think last I checked, I was like at 23. And what I do right now is I kind of just pop in and do a couple of captain kills just to see if anything pops and to just kind of pop out. So it's like, well, I got 20 minutes to kill before this meeting that I'm going to be on starts because I'm only a part-time, content creator in that regards. So I just got to pop in, have a little fun, and pop out. The one thing that is limiting in Outriders' case is it doesn't have a profanity filter. It doesn't have a gore filter. So this is not a game that I will be playing anywhere around my kids. And so unlike Gears 5, which I can turn off the gore and I can turn off the profanity, then it's just kind of like daddy's killing monsters, kids. Yay. So it's a little like, I still don't do it heavily, but it's like, it's still a little bit where I'm not sitting here like, all right, if they walk in, because they're most likely they're just like running around. Destiny, on the other hand, is like a good counter example of it's a good game that you can go play and shoot aliens. And it's like, I have a weird filter when it comes to kind of that. I won't play Call of Duty with them, but I will I'll do Destiny, things like that. Yeah, but anyway, so long story short, 20. Don't judge me. You 70.
He's also got 30 legendaries. He's just not talking about them.
I've got two. I didn't end up losing. I got Golem's Limb and I got Thunderbird. And nice. Holy freaking crap!
Oh, what a great gun!
These guns are so good. Yeah. And then you factor the fact that we haven't even got hands on with a crafting system, and you can just continue. Like it gives you I don't mind RNG progression as long as there's a static progression so that you go and you're like, well, I didn't get the drop. That's not a big deal. I made 10% progress through this other method. And so when you pair those together, when you do get the drop, it's just like it has that emotion that has been lacking in a lot of looters. Either they shower you with pointless crap that you have it's just thanks for giving me 30 minutes of inventory management. Like, no. Stop. Like, just make it powerful, make it exciting, make it completely change. And the fact is that once I got Thunderbird, completely changed my Technomancer build. Like, it completely changed the way I play that. And I was like, that's exactly what you want.
And there's so many different combinations. Like, if you really think about how many weapons there are, how many each weapon has, a couple mods, and switching those up and moving things around. There are so many combinations of things that people are going to be going crazy saying, I need 10 copies of this legendary because I want to put a different mod on each one for my different builds that I want to do. And it's going to get pretty insane, I think, with the mods and the crafting, which is really cool.
Yeah. Livid, why don't you wrap this one up? You got a healthy chunk of hours, even though they're all fake.
No, not. I think I've got around 100. I think I've got around 160 hours so far in the
How many
demo,
did you play?
But
how many were you actually playing?
A solid 30 hours of that is definitely AFK time. A solid 30 hours. Just because I kind of pop it on while I'm doing work at home and everything like that, and I'll just leave it up so I don't have to relaunch it every time. But it's I'll get really busy for 3 hours of work, so that's 3 hours of time it's just sitting up there, right? But even so, over the 130 hours of actually playing, I think I've gotten 7 legendaries total, and 2 of those were duplicates. So I'm still chasing Golem's Limb. That's the one that I want to get, and I cannot get it to drop. But I do have Thunderbird, and I play Technomancer mainly as well. And I will give credit to what your comment on that is. It completely changes the way you play that class. And I'm really eager to see all the
don't
other
have it
options
yet.
that come out.
I don't either.
Yeah, I'm really eager to all the options that come out later on to see like how that can make every other class just play differently, just through like one mod. Just like one mod can change an entire play style. So like, you know, it's going to be hundreds of hours, in my opinion, of farming and making builds in this game. And I think the only thing that I'm a little sad about is I don't think the stash size is going to be big enough for what players want with this game.
No.
So I think
there does seem to be a disconnect there. We've talked about this. Yeah, there definitely
it's like
seems to be a
between 50
disconnect
to 100
between
slots.
the devs and what the community based on. Livid, who is the looter shooter of the two of us, like he said from day one, it has to be huge. If it's not big, they're missing something. And
Destiny
when they kind of
is
revealed
500.
yeah.
And it wasn't enough.
Max that out. Yeah.
Still not enough.
I think they're gonna. Again, just talking to you guys and knowing a little bit about your worlds with the looter shooter stuff. Like, I think they're gonna see it. People are gonna, talk very loudly about it. You're gonna see a patch, and then it's gonna be 500 or 1,000 or something. It's gonna get changed quickly, I think.
I got a question to you then on that regards. With patching, with the game being always online, how is this not considered a games as a service in your opinion?
Honestly, at this point, I think they've realized that like this was going to be a game that maybe flew under the radar a little bit. I didn't think they were expecting kind of meteoric like eyes on this game, but you have to look at the landscape. Like if they had released this game in February, there was nothing else around. They would have had the entire market for months with this one game. I do think that they're not going to be like, okay, we're releasing Season of the Dragon. I think that's where they're going to patch the game. I think if you don't think they're going to patch the game, you're clearly not paying attention to the demo. I just don't think they're going to be like, okay, here's some seasonal items for you to experience. And like, if you guys know our channel, like I've been in Ubisoft hell for a while now with, Assassin's Creed. And I want to blow my brains out because it's such bad development on so many different levels. And I don't even care about me saying this because we didn't get early access to the game. So what do I care? It's just bad development. And it's bad live service. Like that is not a live service game. Sure, you're rolling out some content. I think that's more along the lines of like what we could eventually see with a game like Outriders, but it's definitely not a Destiny. I mean, it's very clear it's not going to be a Destiny where they're rolling out seasons and these season passes and these, different markers along, this progression to this big event. I think we may see some DLC. We may see an expansion at some point. But again, I think they're very smart saying, yeah, we have to wait and see what the success is. The game could come out. It could be riddled with bugs, just like any of the other big AAA games that have come and gone, and people could leave. And we all know, as content creators and as gamers, that you get one shot to make a first impression. Gamers rarely come back to a game. And I think that is what they're trying to do. They're putting their best foot forward. It's the best example of a developer doing that in a long time that I've seen. And because they know they get one shot at this. Especially with an incredibly busy May. There's so many games coming out in May. 2021 is a great year to release games. There's just not a lot of big stuff coming out. But I think they're threading the needle very smartly at this point. But yeah, that's my take on it.
And I wonder if the Xbox Game Pass deal is kind of something they did to help them with potential DLC content and stuff like that down the road to kind of front load that bank,
It's a huge exposure play. I mean, it was probably a big deal. We're never going to know the number that was on that deal, but it was a lot of confidence, I think, from Microsoft looking at this game saying, hey, you guys are doing it right, and we're going to invest in it. And I guess the future is pretty unknown, but I think you're right, Abby, definitely.
I think
all right, let's
animosity on the PlayStation exclusivity stuff for Destiny 2. Microsoft's probably like,
started on that.
It's time. Outriders, let's go.
All right, so let's
exclusivity was horrible.
Oh, yeah.
I think exclusivity is horrible in general, but we won't need to. We don't need to. We don't need to open that can of worms because we'll be here and I'll go on a soapbox for about an hour. Anyways, so
anti-exclusivity cast.
Oh yeah, man. We'll do a whole podcast on that. That'll be great. So this is, I want to get away from kind of the basic questions because I think what we can do here as players that have played this game for dozens, if not hundreds of hours, we can really drill down on some of the things and bring our expertise to the table. So Brian, we're going to start with you here. In your opinion, what's going to make this game successful?
It's going to be the moment-to-moment combat. It's going to be those highlights of crazy builds and people doing crazy things that are going to go viral, and it's going to keep people talking about this game. You got to think about it in terms of like exactly what people are doing. How many hours have people run on the demo? And it's like, oh, isn't that ridiculous? But then it puts that seed in the back of your mind to get yourself like, oh man, like that legendary is amazing. And then it has the different scales. And it also, I think, as a game, it doesn't sit here and sell you on a potential future. I think that is a key aspect to their marketing, but also to the success, is that they've got the combat. So you can come in, you can play, and you can immediately know how to play this game, and that it feels good to shoot. It feels good to fire off your powers. The classes feel good and strong. But more than that, from a solo perspective, then all of a sudden you bring a friend into it, and they synergize those classes so freaking well when you've got freaking Trickster with time bubbles and everything exploding, and you're doing like rock slams, and it's just like, this is such a moment, like, holy crap. Like, you think back to like Super Meat Boy, just as this game that just is so ridiculous, hard in some ways, but it has these moments that people are just like, that is insane. I can't believe I pulled that off. It becomes shareable, it becomes clippable, and then it becomes a conversation that a community can rally around. And then the second and the last, there's 1,000 things I could just monologue on for days, but then crossplay. Like, the one weakness this game has, no cross save. Like, if the fact that it's on Xbox Game Pass, like, okay, well, let me just they don't have that. And that's like, oh, that hurts because it would be nice to be able to pick up and play wherever. But crossplay at the core of it means that a community can build and rally around insane builds, insane speedruns, insane, I can't believe this just happened moments. And whether you're a PlayStation player, an Xbox player, a PC player, who cares? There's no barriers. There's no walls. We're all just gamers at the end of the day. And if you make a friend, God forbid, after you picked a console, like, you're not sitting here like, well, I guess we can't play together. It's like, no, like, who cares? Let's just play. And that accessibility will help alleviate things where it's like, well, let's just go back and play Destiny where we can all play together anyway. No. That's going to help compete. You cannot launch a game against another big game and not even kind of try to meet the bare minimum. And Destiny's already set that with cross-play, cross-save, with cross-play coming in Season 15. Monologue over.
You can tell Brian's done this before, right, guys? My gosh. He's a soapboxer just like I'm a soapboxer.
You should make YouTube videos.
I know, yeah, right? It must be a beard thing. I don't know. Vulkan, Abby, what do you guys think?
So I think for me, it's going to be the build variety, the min-maxing, the complexity that comes out of that. That was the first thing that really drew me in, right? It was the over-the-top kind of unlimited power fantasy that comes with this game. There isn't, okay, we can only equip, one exotic or one legendary, and that's got to build around it. It's go crazy, build all of this stuff, build out your character, throw everything into your skill tree, and just create this absolute monster that runs through everything. Or create something that's an absolute kind of just support beast that will take your team to the next level. There's a ton of people in my Discord that are, Wilson, Path of Exile, people that play Diablo-like games, and they really don't like shooters very much. They absolutely jumped right into this one. They loved it because it had a lot of those elements that make those games popular. Here's all of these different little pieces that I can fit together to create something that the developers didn't think about, or that's going to break the game and just destroy everything in front of you. Couple that with the speed runs, the potential there, Mythic Plus runs in World of Warcraft are a big thing. Endgame really resembles that on a lot of levels. So I think you combine both of those things and people are going to come in droves.
Nice.
Yeah, I totally agree with the build variety. I think that's going to be huge. Finding those really cool synergies between your gear and the mods, and just when it clicks and everybody's just going crazy over trying to find this gear so that they can put together this build and experience that power. I think that's going to, help this game succeed. And then also just the loot dropping. I feel like they did such a good job at their drop rates and how the loot drops, and how as you go up in world tier, you're getting a more of a percentage, and it still feels special. because like we were saying earlier, some of those games, they just throw the loot at you and it's all irrelevant. And after you get to end game, you don't really care because you've already got your couple things. But I feel like they did it so well. So I think that's going to contribute to the success, but also seeing post-launch what they do with some of these crazy builds and with what people are doing, mix and matching in this power. If they start kind of nerfing everything into the ground, or if they start buffing everything else, that can kind of tip the scales as well with how people are enjoying the game. So
yeah. Livid,
yeah,
how about
that's
you?
definitely what I would have. That's definitely what I would have said as well. Because my biggest thing, like what I played a lot of like the Borderlands series and everything, but when I got to Borderlands 3, the biggest thing that made me mad is I got a nice build working for my characters, and then everything just got nerfed. And it's like, I'm not playing with anybody in a PvP sense or anything. Why is this to the point where I can't even use this gun basically anymore for the content that I was running? It was kind of ridiculous. So if they keep things all still on that high power fantasy level, but still keep things, kind of checked to make sure that my biggest concern is like, we have like over 350 mods, right? And of course there's some lower tier mods that are not going to be viable because they're lower versions of the higher tier ones, right? But my biggest concern is higher tier mods will just kind of fall to the wayside, and it will only be, like a couple, like 5 or 10 that are like the ones that everybody's using for everything, right? Because all metas develop, everybody figures out how to min-max everything, and that's what kind of people play. But if they can get a really nice balance that really makes, people want to support, do, frontline tanking like there is, DPSing, there could be enough variety in those things to really make those gameplay sessions always unique and different depending on how people want to play. So I think that's a big factor in the success of the game long term, is making sure that it doesn't just get to a point of power. There's more of like multiple avenues for people to do, right? So I think that's the biggest thing. And then the other thing I think that plays really big into it, what Brian said, is the synergy of everything together. To me, in a way, and rip Anthem here, because I'm going to mention Anthem, the gameplay of Anthem was fantastic. The power fantasy that you had with friends playing together and just having things combo was really solid. And I think a lot of people gravitated to that, and they were really sad that we never got to see a realization of that game with such solid, like, actual gameplay mechanics. It just lacked the content and lacked the build out of the universe for us to really get a full experience there. So for them, making sure that gameplay, if they're adding more content later on or stuff like that, right? Maybe they'll toss a class in or something later in DLC, making sure that power fantasy with that class synergy really always is like the forefront of things. You want to have that always present. So I think that's the biggest factors for success.
Yeah, there's something underwriting this entire conversation, and I'm sure all of you have had these comments on your videos. Why are you farming in the demo? Like, why are you wasting your time? But underneath this entire thing is this crafting and modding system. That is the silver bullet with this game. That is the one real differentiator. If you look at the rest of it, the combat, the enemies, the story, like, okay, you can make the argument that it's really nothing crazy out there different, but it's that crafting and modding flexibility. And we just, every time one of you talk, we just touch on it just enough that it's like, this thing is special. This is the one secret sauce in the mix. And I think once the game unlocks for everybody, and that's only a very limited number of people have experienced it in full. Once the game kind of opens up and you're running through the fields with 350 mods on your armor, on your weapons, that is going to be that thing that either clicks for you and you're like, yes, this is the best game in the world, or like, okay, maybe it's not for me, too much, I don't love it. But I think it's going to be a lot more of the former. People are just, they realize that the crafting and the modding is that special nugget with this game, 100%.
And I think the modding too makes it so that every piece of gear you're getting, blue rarity and above, you're like, oh, wait, let me look at this. Do I have this mod? Okay, what is this mod? Like, you're looking at those mods. It's not like in Destiny where at the end of a Crucible match, you're getting 5 or 6 blues and you're just deleting them immediately without even looking at them. They're interesting mods, and you might pick one piece of gear over another, even though the armor is less or the firepower is less, because the mod is so good. Or keeping it to dismantle and get that mod in your collection. So it adds another layer of like loot that you're chasing after too.
Right. Or even you like how the weapon fires or performs, and the style that it plays in. Like another gun might not feel the same way, right? And we know that we can upgrade weapons rarity, and you can bring those things into end game. So like you get a blue, and you're just like, I wonder how this one feels with the way it fires. Oh, I don't like how this one fires. Let me mod this also to change how it fires. How does it feel then? I think there's a lot of experimentation with even lower level gear that people, I don't think really it clicks right now because everybody's just deleting everything to get legendaries. But those epics and maybe even blues that get upgraded into epics and stuff like that later might be really viable weapons,
And that's such a smart play because when I was playing Division, still am, whenever I think there's a friend game that's really important to these especially looters overall. But Division, I never really got into the loot game of it at all until I hit Cap, as opposed to here, it's immediate right there. It immediately changes the way you can play. It immediately gets you thinking and excited about the possibilities, and it's so nice not have to sit here and say you got to play through the story and then that's really when the game begins. It's like, no, the game begins here, and if you want to keep playing, there's a game for you.
Right. That's such an art too. Like there are so many games and we could list them all off, but like what you just said, Brian, you have to get to the end game. And while I'm sure the end game is what people are going to care about with Outriders, they did manage to find a little bit of that. Okay, you can progress during the base game, during the story, and still have a great time with the systems that are still going to be at play in the end game. Of course, things change in the end game, but there's still enough there to sink your teeth into that you don't need to tell your friend who's interested in the game, hey, you got to put 40 hours into this before you can enjoy it, because that is the sign of not a good game. Because like 40 hours before you enjoy a game, that's terrible. Like, especially as I get older, I realize that I don't have 40 hours to get to that point anymore.
It's something we struggle with within the Final Fantasy 14 community. It gets better. It does.
You just gotta trust me on that one.
So.
All right, so I'm gonna, just because of what we were just talking about, I'm gonna play devil's advocate really quick, and I'm curious to hear your hot takes on this one. Is the crafting system too good? Is it too flexible? Is it giving people too much control that they're going to be able to get everything that they want very quickly and then say, I want to be very clear, say that the game is boring?
So I think you're going to have that regardless. There's going to be people that are going to dive in, right, and be like, hey, this is, I just burnt, 48 straight hours in this game, and I'm doing that multiple days, and now all of a sudden there's nothing to do. But I think, for me, there's been so much, I guess there's such a lack of flexibility in other looter shooters that seeing this is such a breath of fresh air that I think people are going to either overlook or just grab onto it really quickly, right? It's going to be, oh my gosh, I can actually do this stuff. This is stuff I really wanted, X game to do. This is stuff that I really wanted to do over here. And now suddenly I can. It reminds me of indie games. There's a couple of these indie games that I play, and they're very just kind of willy-nilly with a lot of their stuff. It's like, I don't really care about the power fantasy. I just want people to play my game because this is a passion project and I want people playing it. So they just took the ceiling off. And I think the crafting system here did that, and it's just realizing it on a grander scale.
There's no, they're not selling the game that you're going to play it for 1,000 hours or 2,000 hours. So
Smart.
It is. It's completely smart. If you play this and you get everything and you're satisfied and you go away a happy customer, and then they either release an expansion or a sequel, you're on. You're like, yep, let's go and play this. Like whenever I have like a Destiny guide that I have up, that they perform really well. But no matter what, like I'm sure everybody here who's posted a guide will see somebody coming in, and I always see the same kind of concept that people get frustrated around that game. I played this game for 5,000 hours, and I can't believe that they made this one change to this, strike, and now I'm mad. Man, step away.
Comment sections on YouTube are literally just the worst thing in the world. They're the worst thing in the world.
But it's that the mindset is that, no, like, who cares? You want to play this? You want to grind it out? You want to put a couple 1,000 hours into it? Awesome. You've had a really good experience, but they're not trying to sell you that. That's the problem. That's the biggest frustration that I had with Anthem is they like, oh, here's our roadmap. All these games, here's our roadmap. Avengers, here's our roadmap. Here's the pathway to where we get to where you will maybe enjoy this game. It's like, no. They're like, here's our game. Here's our game. Go enjoy it. Go enjoy it. And then if you go put thousands of hours and then you're like, man, this game sucks because they never added anything, for another 9 months. They never said they would. They never sold you that. Yeah. If you think that's happening, you need to go read what they're telling you or listen to a content creator who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, quickly touching on that roadmap thing really, really quick, because you brought it up and I want to touch on it. Not every game does it well. As you just pointed out, there are games that don't, but there are some games that do. And I just want to shout out the Risk of Rain 2 developers. My gosh, you talk about a roadmap. They were on point with their roadmap, and their base game was fun. We talk on the channel all the time about gameplay loop. The gameplay loop has to be right. And Risk of Rain 2, for anybody who hasn't played it, is a fantastic game. And they just kept adding content on target, on time, and that is a good example of a roadmap that works for that community because the base game was good. The foundation for the house was there. They just added shutters or they added a skylight. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't actually try and change the game throughout the roadmap. Like, the game's okay now, but again, wait in 40 days or 40 months, the game will be great. Like, no, nobody's going to do that in 2021. It just doesn't work.
Is Risk of Rain the exception in your mind?
I think there's another one.
I think roadmaps are good. I really do. Especially, I think it's a good tool for indie developers overall. I think AAA developers haven't figured it out yet. And I think they use it as a tool to change their game as opposed to a foresight tool, looking into the future. This is what I want my game to be at the final state, but I'm going to have the game ready here for you. And along the way, you're going to come back and enjoy these new things we have, but we're not changing the game. We're just adding to it. I think there's a fundamental mindset difference with games like that. Livid, what game are you talking about? I'm not reading your mind right now.
I think Remnant from the Ashes, and I'm sure most of you here can agree that game was launched in a great state. Like, it had all the content you could ever need to finish it from start A to point A to point B, right? And then all the stuff they added after the fact was all just like quality of life. Here's some more cool content. Here's great stuff that you can jump in for, a couple like 60, 70 hours, get all the loot, and you're good to go. Go play something else, And I think here,
the connection thread is that they launched with a good gameplay, gameplay. And that's like when you don't have that core like thing that's going to get people coming right back. That's the thing. Like, you might be mad at Destiny 2 for whatever reason, but it's got like the gameplay that gets you hooked. And then exactly what's going on. That the guns feel great to fire, and that could be like. And so if you don't have that, there is no reason to have that roadmap because people aren't going to come back and be like, man, that felt good. If it feels good to play that game, quality of life, bug fixes. Oh, we really didn't balance that loot drop rate or whatever. Like, all that can be fixed. It's the age of the internet. I do not worry about that at all. But that's when going hands on and feeling with an Outriders is like, okay, we're good. This is time to it's go time. I'm ready to. I think the internet and the world needs a huge win. And honestly, outside of who knows if they launch with endless bugs, outside of like obviously a catastrophic event, like I think we're right on the verge of epic.
Yeah, I think. Abby, anything on that crafting thing before we move on to the next question?
I mean, I think the crafting is a really great move. I think it differentiates them from a lot of other looter shooters. It's going to take a while to craft all the things and do all the things that we want to do with all the weapons that are out there on top of finding all of them. But then I think they did a really good job with the attribute system where they have attributes on gear that are random. So there's your RNG, except for the legendaries, which I really do wish that the legendary armor attributes were random. And hopefully I know they've heard that feedback. So but I think that's going to be the true end game, right? Getting the attributes you want with the mods, with one of the mods, and then you craft the other mod, and then you're good to go, and then you improve those attributes up to max.
That perfect puzzle piece almost.
Yeah. So I think they did a good job of kind of having the crafting there to satisfy maybe more casual players that just got a legendary and they want to swap out one of the mods. And then also satisfying min-maxers that want to get those perfect attributes and max them all to the best and then have their mods on there. So they kind of have a little bit of something for everybody, I feel like.
That's very true.
Nice. All right. So kind of staying on the vein of successful, not successful. Again, we've played the game for collectively hundreds of hours at this point at the demo. And I know a lot of you guys have played that Xbox Insiders version of the game. Do we see any cracks in the armor at this point? Are there things we are worried about with Outriders? Sorry, I said I was going to point to people. I'm going to actually pass to my partner for this one first. Livid, go ahead.
So, like I said before, I think one of the big cracks in the armor is the very limited inventory space for your stash. I think that is a big point that might throw a lot of people off because I don't know how, from a development perspective, I know that, adding spaces is not like just a simple thing. Like it takes up server storage space and bandwidth to really, as you build like larger and larger, libraries of data for those characters, especially when you start customizing each one of those. It's not just like one set of loot that everybody has and it's one instance, right? It's all these different separate little instances of things. So I don't know how that'll play out with them actually expanding it, because it seemed like they were pretty resistant on that 50, going above that 50 to 100 slots. I hope that's not the case. I think, but I think that'll be one of the bigger pitfalls of things. I think the other big pitfall is I do like that the end game kind of like encourages you to run through the content as fast as you can for better rewards. But at the same time, I think that is a double-edged sword, trying to get people to run through the content as fast as they can to get the rewards, and then without a leaderboard system in place to really make people want to repeat that is where I see it. If the leaderboards were there and in place, I think that would be fine, because people will grind that stuff endlessly to try to be the best, Without that recording there for people to actually see, they have to go through the external means to really post their, world record run and stuff like that. And that turns more of the casual to mid-tier players off from that sort of activity, So.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's the term handcrafted, right? To me, handcrafted is static. It's something that you're not going to be able, you're going to run through a few times. And then at that point, things are going to start to seem stale. It's 15 end-game maps, right, that are handcrafted. So you're going to know, okay, around this corner, there's going to be this. There's going to be these mobs here, these mobs here. Yes, you can crank the difficulty, but we've seen this kind of play out. And not to reference Destiny again, but Destiny 2 launched with handcrafted weapons. And we got to see how exactly exciting that was when those were there. So to me, a procedural in game, sure, you can let's do handcrafted for certain, situations. Maybe the Eye of the Storm thing is a handcrafted experience, but having a procedural in game where things are going to be somewhat different each time, I think something like that would be great. Maybe to your point, Codiak, maybe it's they do have a season in end game, and it's just swapping those 15 maps to 15 new maps. And that kind of keeps things a little bit fresh. But right now, that's the biggest kind of chink that I see, in addition to inventory space that Lou was talking about.
Yeah, I know. I just saying it, people are going to immediately want to ban me. But I don't think PvP needs to be in this game. But I love PvP, and I think actually, I think leaderboards are a form of player versus player. I don't have to actively be shooting you, but as a way. And honestly, at the end of the day, for me, I don't care about being best in the world. That is just so far from the time commitment or care. However, I love to talk crap with my friends. Like if we're all sitting here and we're playing and I've got a higher score than all of you, I'm going to let you know. And it's not because I hate you. It's because we're just friends. We're ribbing. We're having a good time. And maybe that motivates you to maybe try a little bit harder. And then all of a sudden you crush me. And all of a sudden we have now created our own sandbox of playing, talking, continuing this thing. And even if you take breaks, it's been 6 months, I came back and you get a little notification, Brian just beat your high score. You're like, that son of a gun, I'm going to log in and now I'm going to crush him. Being able to allow people, creatives and not create, just gamers, jump in and make up their own fun. It's important. So the fact is I don't know, you run into with power fantasy games, you run into obviously the question of how would you do PvP. They didn't design it from the start. I don't think you want to add it in at this point. Mm-hmm. But leaderboards are a huge thing. I love Vulkan's idea of procedurally generated content, because variety is the thing that keeps gamers enjoying the content, that surprise, because otherwise it's just a dance. It's okay, you go here, and that's only going to lead to toxicity within matchmaking. How do you possibly not know? And thank God we don't have voice chat, because they'd let you know. But how could you possibly not know that there's an ogre around that corner and this is happening? It's dude, I'm just trying to play the game.
I still think a horde mode would do wonders for this game. A horde mode would be amazing.
You're giving me flashbacks to my World of Warcraft days, Brian. Oh my gosh.
I mean, even Gears of War, right? Gears of War had a horde mode. It was great.
They have the 50 mode, and so here's the problem with that is that people would bounce out after maybe 20 levels. So you'd go and they're like, all right, this is as fast as it's going to be. I got to collect my rewards. But then they introduced a kind of hyper 12 round horde mode, and it's so freaking good. I've spent so much time in that mode, and honestly, I wish I was playing it right now. It's just that it's that good and it's that exciting. And it makes me wish that they would make a Gears of War that would be that kind of persistent online, games as a service game, because give me my own character, let me go level up. Yeah, that's actually what I'd love to see for years in the future, but we'll see.
At the heart of that, you just basically said more is not always better, but balance is the key. Right? Because you said people go 50 rounds in something, they leave, right? So horde mode may be the answer, but maybe it's in the right balance, right? And it's that really, again, I mean, you're talking about procedurally generated stuff. Like, I come from the roguelite world. That is my baby genre. Like, if there was something that you would pin on me, it's Hades, it's Skull, it's Curse of the Dead Gods. Like, I just love those types of games. And I'm still waiting for a AAA developer to look at that genre and say, wow, these are some brilliant ideas. Why are we not doing this on a massive scale and just showing all types of gamers that we can take these really great, just addictive concepts and put them in a big, high budget game. But I think that genre is vastly underrated. But anyways, Abby, how about you? Any cracks in the armor?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what everyone's saying. I agree with the inventory, the stash space. I agree with procedurally generated dungeon type activities would be great, or something like what Remnant did with the survival mode would also be great.
Oof, yeah.
And it's something that if they did procedurally generated or reused, world bosses and bosses that they already have in the game, that's something that they can put together, with existing creative that they don't really have to develop this whole new world for. So yeah, I think that would be great, and I agree. People are going to get to a point where they're going to want more content, and then I think that they really need to keep an eye on like all the technical issues and stuff like that. I know, when the demo came out and people started losing their inventory, that was a hot topic, and people were saying if this happens when the full game launches, then that's a deal breaker for a lot of people. People are not going to spend hours and hours playing this game if they're afraid that in one log out, their whole inventory is going to be gone.
Not even that, they're not going to spend the money to buy the game. I had a lot, and I'm sure you guys saw this too. A lot of people canceled their pre-orders when that happened. And we actually had a video on the channel where we're like, this is issue 1. If you do not fix this, the game will not launch successfully. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Sorry.
You're fine. I just feel like that, I mean, it's issue number 1, and it seems like they fixed it for the most part, but I know they're still working on the autosave issue where people are crashing before the autosave and stuff like that, which I don't know the back end of that. But that's 100% issue number 1. I think issue number 2 is the matchmaking stuff. I know there have been issues in the demo with matchmaking, and, they've been working on it, but I think if the matchmaking is not running smoothly, I think they'll see some people kind of falling off from the game, because this game is so great to play with your friends, right? You want to play with other classes and kind of mix and match your abilities together and have fun like that. So, hopefully they figure all that out before Thursday. What is it?
I like that we're not talking about these big set pieces, though. We're talking about little things in the grand scheme of things. We're not saying like this major facet of the game is bad and needs to get fixed, or this is where the drag is going to be. We're talking about systems, which that's very important. Gameplay systems are what makes games great, but we're not talking about those big things. Like there's a fundamental issue here. We're talking about little stuff, which I think is a good sign. Anyways, I have 2 more questions for everybody. I know we'll keep this to a tightish hour. I want to go with a kind of an easy question and then a question about you guys as content creators. So the easy question, I don't remember who hasn't gone the most. Let's go with Vulkan here first. What was your favorite legendary during the demo and why?
Oh, man. Okay. Great. And
question. You didn't have to own it. I want to be clear. Like, I know we all know what all of the legendaries are at this point. Like, what was your favorite one?
Honestly, I think it would probably be Golem's Limb. And reason being is I feel like that gun, it was kind of one of the first ones I saw that I really liked and was able to get my hands on. But being able to take a skill from another class and give it to a different class, have a glass cannon like a pyromancer, or take a trickster and allow them to throw that golem skin on and kind of utilize and cover up some of the weaknesses of that class. Being super squishy, now all of a sudden you have a 65% damage reduction that you can just sit on. You're a trickster, well, congrats. Also, you have a shield that goes over that. Suddenly you go from this, kind of squishier class to all of a sudden a front-facing tank. So those type of things I love, and for that, Golem's Limb just top of the pyramid for me.
Nice. Brian, how about you?
Well, I can't praise Golem Slim enough, but I have to go with Thunderbird as a Thunderbird owner myself. A, because it reminds me of the car. B, at the same time, it completely changed how I played Technomancer. And that in and of itself really cemented, excuse my stutter, it cemented my just like, holy crap, this is something special. I can't wait to see what's all out there. Now, I don't have actually, unfortunately, all the legendaries memorized, but I will say this. I really actually am impressed by the design of the weapons themselves. Like back to Golem Slim, like you have the rocks and they're floating. It's fun to look at. Yeah. It's fun to shoot when, and you see it. It feels like this trophy. It feels epic, and then it plays epic. But same thing with Thunderbird. It's like when the lightning's raining down, it just feels good. I can't get enough of it. So
nice. Abby, how about you?
From the ones that I've gotten in the demo, I would say Voodoo Matchmaker is one of my favorites, and I've heard rumblings that it has been changed a little bit, perhaps in the demo. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna have to log in and check that out. But I like the vulnerability aspect of that weapon. I think vulnerability is going to be huge in endgame to do more damage to the enemies. So I really like that gun. I've been using it. Funny enough, almost all my legendaries I've gotten on Technomancer, but I've been using it on my Technomancer, and it's great. And then one of the ones that I didn't get, but I would really love to get, is the pistols, the Torment and Agony pistols. Mm-hmm. That the mod on there looks super amazing, and I think it would be cool to do like a pistol sidearm type of build.
Yeah, definitely. Livid, how about you?
I really love Golden Limb, like you guys have said, just for the, not only like you're saying where it goes on other classes, but the ability to effectively have 4 skills at a time instead of just 3. That's huge, right? Mm-hmm. I think my favorite one though is Torment and Agony. And I think the big thing I like about that is I'm just trying to, I always like theory crafting things like way in the future, what's going to happen. And I'm just wondering, like something like that, maybe on like a high damage sniper build, right? The biggest problem that you have with sniper builds is when you're reloading, your downtime, you're not doing any damage. Well, when you reload, you do 5 times damage on your shot. So you have a sustained DPS through a reloading mechanic through that mod. And I think that's wildly cool. But like it also can apply to like LMGs that you put on everything. You literally hit everything on the map with that, and then it just all explode. Like it's really cool. And I really hope there's more mods that we see later on that aren't just damage buffs or, just regular buffs. I like to see things that are unique like that. So I like those 2 weapons because of their uniqueness.
Yeah, kind of bouncing off of Livid's point there, I wanted to talk about Airy Master, which was the first shotgun that we saw with a variation on it. And I really like the variation system in the game, being able to change up a weapon to give it a little bit more flexibility in certain situations. And that mod is a utility mod where you're lifting things up and suspending them for however many seconds. Internal cooldown on it, which is fine, because if you slap that on an LMG and everybody's just lifted up on the battlefield, like obviously that's not going to work. But it was a really cool example of that as well. And I think a lot of people didn't like the breach variation so much. It is limiting in some capacities, but that mod is really cool and kind of touches on that same area as the Golem's Limb, where there's class crossover, and it does make you feel like you're getting a 4th ability, which is important because 3 abilities is limiting. It can feel very repetitive. And I wanted to go back to Abby's thing really quick before we go on to the last question. Does anybody else, and maybe it's just me, feel like the pistols don't fit into the game? The balance between the pistols, the primary weapons, and how often you can get ammunition in the game feels off to me. And I don't know the solution there, but I want pistols to feel, if you're going to give me awesome pistols like the Torment and Agony, I want them to feel more present, or that I'm going to need to use them. But if I'm going to get an ammo chest around every corner, is there a point?
Well, it just you to actually get the pistol out and spin it around and then use it.
Yeah, there's something, we talked about balance. There's something weird there that I'm not in love with.
Yeah, I feel like the revolvers feel really good, but everything else doesn't. Right? In that sidearm slot, I think the revolvers feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say because like even so far in the bosses that we've seen, there's like ammo chests. Like I've never run out of ammo. Never seen that happen. And the question is like, does that happen later into the game, and thus do they have a kind of a more key role? That's only going to be answered by when we get into more the end game and see how like, oh, it makes sense here. Earlier in the game, we want you shooting and shooting and shooting, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoops, maybe there's a skill, maybe there's a utility. Like, all right, we're gonna help. I'm gonna reload, and all y'all get some ammo or something in that nature. We haven't seen everything yet, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
Maybe they thin it out.
Yeah. Throw a higher crit multiplier on pistols. That way you can kind of form a pistol build.
Give you a reason to use the pistols, right? That's obviously one solution. Or just maybe because we're in the beginning parts of the game, we are seeing ammo chests more frequently. If they thin those out a little bit as you get deeper into the game, make those sidearms feel more relevant. I mean, here's the thing. Sidearms have unlimited ammunition, so there's already like a weirdness there. But at least you would make them more present, either by making them more powerful or more applicable, or by reducing ammo in level. So I was thinking about that as Abby was talking about Torment and Agony. So final question, guys, because we're coming up on that hour mark. We're all content creators here. We're all going to be focusing on different things. So I want to just quickly talk about the type of content that people are going to see on your channels. Everybody's been seeing on our frame that we have all of your channels. Please go subscribe to these guys. Go check them out, whether it's on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. I think Brian is famous for his TikToks. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, I just started on TikTok just the other day.
There we go.
And only because I was like, YouTube's added the short thing, and I was like, oh, I'll make a short. Let's play around with that. That's fun. And then I was like, it's the same format. I'll just like upload it over here. Like, all right. Yeah, nobody follows me over there, but it's okay. I don't give a crap.
No, it's totally ribbing you there. But yeah, so I want to talk really quickly. What kind of content will people see? Specifically, we're all obviously going to be covering Outriders, specific Outriders content on your channel. And Abby, let's start with you.
Well, I originally, when I was back doing Borderlands content, I focused a lot on builds and creating cool builds with gear that synergizes really well together. So if anything like that pops out at me in Outriders, I'll do it. I'm not going to force it. I never like to force builds, but whenever I find those cool little synergies between stuff, that's always an exciting time. So if any of those happen, there'll be builds on the channel, but mostly guides and walkthroughs for a lot of the different systems in the game and a lot of the bosses and quests and things like that. So
nice. Vulkan, how about you?
Definitely guides and tutorials. I really like to target new players and help them get into the game. A lot of this stuff's kind of overwhelming at times. So being able to give them a little ramp up there, but also builds. Something that I like to do is find non-meta builds. Sure, I'll put the meta one out there, but what else is kind of like off the wall that is just different and might kind of go against the grain a little bit. So those type of build guides will be out on my channel as well.
Nice. Brian, how about you?
I was thinking about going in a different direction this time around, going with Outrider Ludes. Is anybody covering that yet?
Yes, straight RP.
One of the things my plan honestly is like I'm planning on streaming a little bit. I run into like time constraints, like I don't ever, and I wouldn't say come subscribe to me if you want the first content. Like honestly, I would say Vulkan, Abby, like they crush it in that department because I'm going to be with my kids. I'm going to play with them. That's my priority in life. But I like to just I like leveling. I like grinding out. I love these games for that. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm just going to play. I'm going to stream a little bit. And then, I'll cover the news. Like that's what I continue to do. But once I have a really good understanding, I like to sit here and I majored in software engineering. I'm a software engineer. I have a way of kind of like, I don't know, seeing kind of behind like, oh, okay, these systems interact. And I try to go into that kind of detail. And so usually those things roll out much further down the line. And then I look at it and say, well, okay, I played this. Like if a new player was coming in, how would I explain this to them in a way that they might not understand? Like, hey, I don't understand any of this. Okay, here's the thing. It's going to be okay. Just get in, create your character. Here's the best thing for starting, being a new player. Maybe avoid Pyromancer would be my first advice. Later on, I'm betting Pyromancer is much, much, much more powerful. But like coming into it, it's like that was actually the hardest class in the demo for me personally. Now that doesn't mean everybody has to agree. It's the internet. No one's gonna, but just like to say, hey, like, let's just get you in, let's get you started. And so that's kind of my strategy. I'm not going to stress myself out. Like I've in the past, like I'm going to do everything. I want to do everything because my brain likes to think that I can. So it's like, no, I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna make the content that I find passionate about. But more than anything, I just want to kind of just enjoy this first and foremost. And being that I can't play it around my kids means that it might take me a while to level up all the classes and get them to cap. That's really going to be my first goal, because when we talk about synergy, I can sit here and make a build guide for Devastator, but what would be a good combination with Trickster and Devastator? And here's the thing, because this game, you can play it solo, and and obviously there are gamers who want that experience. Most likely it's going to be like your friend saying, you got to come play this with me. I'm Devastator. And someone's like, what do I need to focus in on so I can help you out and have a good time? That's just my thought.
That's true too. I wonder if we'll be coming out with like co-op builds of here's the techno pyrotechnics, co-op build.
Could be a really cool angle.
That's funny because I did builds for Remnant that were co-op focused builds.
Okay,
back when I was just on my single channel kind of thing before I merged with Cody and everything. So co-op builds, yeah, imagine that. But yeah, the co-op build aspect is very fun because a lot of people want to know how can I play with my friend most effectively. Right. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting angle. So that's something that I want to be doing. Yeah.
Also with the enemy, density increase in the health and how it scales with co-op too is so important to put out there. A lot of people make builds just for solo players, and then somebody that's playing with two other friends goes in with the same build and says, this doesn't work. This doesn't work in 3-player co-op because there's a lot more enemies,
Take way more damage, you die faster, they don't die as fast. I
can't jump in there and just smash all of them and kill them. They're still alive.
And Livid, just I want to do my due diligence here. What can people expect on our channel?
On our channel, we're definitely going to be doing build guides. I love that stuff. That's one of my favorite things in any looter shooter, any sort of thing that has that theory crafting with stuff like that, right? We have that, and then weapon reviews. I love doing weapon reviews on things. Just saying, which ones you'd really be chasing for, mods, stuff like that. And Cody, you can go ahead and take the other aspect of things that you really like in these games if you want to. Like, what would you?
It's not builds. I'll tell you that much. It's not builds. My brain does not think that way. I love boss fights. That's for me a good boss fight. And this comes back to my World of Warcraft days. I am just obsessed with the concept of killing a good boss and good boss design. So I'll probably start there, which is going to be a little bit more exciting for me because that'll be earlier content than you guys who are in the weeds trying to figure out builds and mods and skills. So I'll be excited about that. And then, obviously I'll tag team with Livid on weapon reviews and stuff like that. So across the board, guys, seriously, these are all fantastic content creators. So please go follow them on their individual channels. Go subscribe to them. Watch their streams. I know every content creator says that, but these are genuinely good people, which is why we're all talking today. And we're all excited about Outriders. So just for the last minute, simple facts here. Outriders comes out on April 1st on pretty much every platform. Crossplay is a thing, not cross save. And I believe, is it 60? It's 60, right? Yeah, it's $60. So
60.
Coming out this week, guys. Very exciting stuff. And as always, if you have any questions for these guys or us, leave them in the comment section below. And that's all the time we got for today. So my name is Codiak. This has been The Panel, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.